Hello. Welcome back.
Hello. Welcome,
There it
welcome,
is.
everyone. And yes, we do have official costumes for this now.
Yeah, look at that. We get to change our outfits freaking like 3 times a week. Honestly, I
We
think the next step
do.
is us cosplaying our like Pathfinder characters, I guess.
Maybe? I'm
Like
wondering how that would look.
well, first they both need designs, so that might be a while. Uh, but yeah, I have to get the funds to commission myself to make my own character that I don't even really know how she looks. And you know,
Uh, how very true.
that's the vibe right now. That's the vibe. Alrighty, but yes, here we are. I will be working on the comic. Honestly, much older comic stuff than I was ever working on before on stream. Um,
Yes. Oh
and
my
now you
gosh,
get
I
to see
remember coloring
colors.
the flats for this.
Yeah, now you get to see colors. I'm literally almost done. This is the literal last panel of this entry that I have to do, and then I'm gonna work on Valentine's Day
Ah,
stuff. So it's comic adjacent.
amazing.
But yeah, I enjoy
Oh,
it.
it totally counts. Are you kidding?
I like the Valentine's Day ones. Two of them are kind of ham, and then the other ones are like pretty chill. So we'll see. Um, but yeah, all right, welcome all. Today we are talking about compelling flaws.
Yes.
Now,
Uh,
I think we'll start with what does that mean? What do we mean by that, right? What do we mean by a compelling flaw? Well,
yes.
you
That's
know
an
when
excellent place to start out.
when you have a job interview, or if you haven't had a job interview, but you've probably heard about job interviews, right? At this point in time, and classic one of the things that they always joke about being asked is, "What is your biggest flaw?" Right? Now, some interviews do this. Dylan has been to multiple interviews where they do actually ask you this question. I have never been to an interview that has asked you this question. So,
I have.
there you go. See, it really
It's in,
depends.
it's intimidating as hell.
It very much depends. Um, However, they really don't want to know. They really don't want to know your actual biggest flaw, right? They're more just what is the answer they're gonna give, right? What are they gonna tell me so that I can judge whether or
Or
not this person is gonna
borderline
hire?
honesty, but not so honest that you kill your own chances.
Yeah. So they're not really looking for a good answer. Those are not compelling flaws. The flaws that you tell your interviewer are not compelling flaws because that's not what they want to hear, right? They want to hear, "Oh, I work too hard," or
Yeah. I
"Oh,
don't know when to stop working. I'm just so dedicated. And don't get me wrong, that could so it's
my
so
left
funny
kidney
because
isn't functional."
well, I definitely think if I could go off for a bit here, Ori,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting that you brought up a way to think about what a not compelling flaw
Mm.
is like what kind of answer would you give a job interview? Because that could certainly work. However, in the example I gave, like being overly dedicated could absolutely be a character flaw, and it could be a compelling one as well. For example, let's say this character who has this particular flaw doesn't eat when they're supposed to, works constantly into the night, missing sleep. Actually, now that I think about it, this is starting to sound like Soma from Food Wars.
Yeah.
But
Poor Soma.
it's not. So, the way I would define compelling flaws, it's not necessarily a toxic trait. Hell, it's not even a bad trait. But it's something that makes the character more intriguing, more relatable. But what a flaw must absolutely do.
Jamie.
I'm sorry, Jamie, I didn't realize.
It's a call out for like 90% of us, if I'm being honest. But
Oh yes, and that'll bring me to another point. But to finish this one, I forgot what I was saying.
a
That
flaw is
that was
not
oh,
a toxic trait. A flaw is not.
right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So it doesn't have to be toxic. It doesn't even have to be bad. But it has to be something that basically is a detriment to the character. For example, a character could be very protective of the people in their lives, but when it goes into like overprotectiveness and it becomes stifling, now it's a flaw, because it's not only hurting the other characters, it's hurting that character's relationship to others. So I'm trying to illustrate with these examples like how this can be done.
It's interesting you say a flaw doesn't have to be bad. I would argue actually that it does have to be bad, but that doesn't mean that what is considered a good trait can't become bad. And I think that's exactly the example with, you know, toxic positivity. You know, you could say, you know, like exactly caring too much about people, right? Where you stop caring for yourself, you know, putting yourself in harm's way because I can fix them or I can do whatever. I would say that is inherently bad now. You have made it bad. The original idea isn't necessarily
detriment
bad.
To character.
Exactly.
And sometimes you could even argue it comes down to audience interpretation as well, where someone may look at that, because we are all people with experiences and different life experiences at that. Someone could look at that and say, oh my gosh, that is so harmful to this character. I wish they just stop like doing this self-sabotaging behavior. Whereas another person might look at that and say, wow, that's so admirable of them. I really admire that trait. It really can go both ways sometimes. It just depends on what you see when you look at the character.
Get sleep.
Jamie.
Everybody's getting sick. Get sleep.
Ugh.
That's such a funny thing. As just a side tangent of being like a flaw of staying up way too late, whether you have to or not, right? Like there's a difference between like staying up late because you don't want to go to bed and you had no other time to do fun stuff versus staying up late because you either literally don't have enough time to do the work that you need to do, or you put it off and now you have to stay up late or study or whatever. It's like you sort of have to come to a point where you realize that it's not worth it. It's not worth it. I slept way too many alarms because of these sort of things. No, just like going to bed way too late, and then you just knock out, and then you just pass out, and then you just can't be woken up by anything. It says no when you try to sleep. That's unfortunate.
Tell me about it. Your brain does?
Apparently Jamie just can't go to sleep
your
when
body.
it's time to go to sleep. Yeah.
Oh.
I found that I have to listen to something. You know, okay. You know what's hilarious? All those things that tell you how to have a good sleep, like total darkness, total silence, you know, all this sort of stuff is like, no, I think I would break down in tears and cry if I had to sleep like that.
See, I'll be honest. I have to
no
at
worries,
least
Scarecrow. Good night.
For sleeping, and it's usually on my phone. And they say don't look at screens before bed.
I have to listen to something, and it either has to be talking or like very specific music. Right. So there's two things I listen to. I either listen to one very specific Reddit reading YouTuber, or I listen to like this specific music box playlist that is literally recordings of an actual physical music box that I've had since I was literally born, that still exists, that I still have.
Sound very peaceful.
Those are the two things. I literally can't go to sleep in silence. I want to die. I also can't. I still sleep with a nightlight, and I will never stop sleeping with a nightlight, because the idea of not being able to wake up and like see is terrifying to me. And so it's like it can't be pitch black, even though all of the studies are like it needs to be pitch black. It can't be pitch black. Okay, when we were
sorry, not for me,
living in the olden times, the moon was out 90% of the times. The stars was out,
And
right? It was never pitch
so we
black.
could actually see the moon.
Yeah, it wasn't pitch black. Okay, so like, don't do that. But that's a side tangent. But that's a flaw of mine, maybe. But is it detrimental?
Shots at the sleep community.
I just literally, you take any study that tells you how to sleep, and I literally just can't do them.
So Ori, you say those are quote unquote flaws of yours. I can't sleep unless there's a nightlight. I have to listen to something. I wouldn't call that a flaw, though.
No, see, I would say that they are flaws, but they're not compelling flaws.
Argue that.
They're not compelling flaws. And now, the reason I would say they're flaws is because it is detrimental. It does mean that if I literally leave my house to sleep anywhere else, I have to prepare a lot of things. I bring a nightlight, right? I have a physical travel nightlight. I have to, bring headphones. I remember multiple times in my childhood, before I had like full control over like packing myself, that I had forgotten headphones of some sort, that I had forgotten things. Actually, very recently, I went on vacation with Dylan, and I had just gotten a new phone before that. My old phone had a headphone jack. My new phone did not. And the headphones that I brought, which were noise-canceling headphones, specifically to be on the plane with noise-canceling headphones, were headphone jack only. So I didn't have the ability to actually listen to things from my phone. I just listened to noise canceling, which is better than nothing. But it wasn't great. So I had to order on Amazon. Thankfully, I have Prime. 2-day shipping to Dylan's parents' house where we were staying to get it before, like in 2-day shipping, right before we left. And then otherwise, I had to turn the volume way down because Dylan can't sleep with noise. He can't have any noise. He has to have very little light, so it's very difficult and annoying for us to exist together.
Now it's bringing trouble to another. So yes, now it is a flaw.
Yeah. So while it is a flaw, I wouldn't say it's a particularly compelling flaw, as it's relatively easily remedied if I prep correctly and deal with it.
I would say a compelling flaw isn't necessarily made compelling by how in-depth it is, but rather what information it gives you about the character or the person of that flaw. And I would say a lot of people just learned about you right now and were like, oh wow, I know so much more about Ori and the way her brain works. I would argue that's a little compelling from a certain point of view.
All right. So then I would have an interesting sort of question then, Mars.
Sure.
Is that, can you think of a character from literally anything who had a not compelling flaw?
I can, yes.
All right,
and
go on.
It is a very easy punching bag. So I will get this one out of the way first, and then I will do my utmost to try to think of one that's a little bit less of a low-hanging fruit. But there is a reason that everyone says the Mary Sue or the Gary Stew is defined by clumsiness. It's not compelling in the slightest, because it's literally just there to be a cutesy trait.
That reminds me so hard.
This isn't something that needs to change as the character grows, but this is something that people can relate to. We're all clumsy from time to time. It doesn't necessarily hurt anyone around them. And it's like, oh, it's cutesy. It could be shrugged off. There's no lasting consequences of it. There are times where clumsiness can be done correctly, but most of the time it is balanced out with another far more interesting flaw. It is usually never the defining.
The main one.
Whereas with Gary Sue, Mary Sue, it typically is. So that was my chance to swing at some low-hanging fruit.
It's interesting you bring that up. It's interesting you bring that up, because immediately when you said clumsiness, my first thought, went to Marinette Dupain-Cheng from Miraculous Ladybug.
Okay, I've never seen that one, so you're gonna have to fill me in.
So, Marinette is the person who is Ladybug, right? So Marinette is the person who's Ladybug, and literally 90% of the things in the show of her being Marinette are being clumsy, irresponsible, or just like unable to speak to her crush in a certain way.
Which I'm imagining is heavily juxtaposed with the hero identity.
It is heavily juxtaposed with the hero identity, and while that could be interesting, it means that Ladybug is almost completely flawless, besides the one thing, which is Marinette in general is kind of quick to anger. And that's the only flaw that sort of comes through. However, none of them are ever learned from in any sort of way. Except the anger sometimes. And then it just happens again and again and again and again.
I was thinking in a show, because I know it airs on Nickelodeon sometimes, and I know it's definitely for like the young teen and up demographic. You would think they would play with, since you mentioned irresponsibility, they would play with that angle a bit more, especially with her being a hero and all.
It's definitely
that would be a flaw to
it's definitely not well done. But what you were also reminding me of as something that's sort of like, oh, this is their big flaw, but then it sort of like amounts to nothing ever, right? Because I think you could have clumsiness be an actual compelling flaw, but you have to actually make the clumsiness have consequences, right? Like you actually have to have, like you could have a character that's so Butterfingers, that's so clumsy that they drop the mystical magic MacGuffin orb, right? And the plunges the world into, like now that's a flaw that has, you know, consequences, right?
I'm pretty sure that was Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, maybe. But, you know, you could write a story that's specifically like, my clumsiness is like essentially a curse, right? Like is a big flaw that my chosen one, has to deal with, getting through a china shop or something. Like you could do it, is more the idea that I'm trying to say. That it's not just
do it.
Nothing. The other one that I see falls into that sort of realm of like it's not like on its own a bad thing, but the way it's done is very non-compelling, is the classic of like a character being unconventionally attractive in some way. And this could go in tons of different ways, but the main like example I can think of has to do with how they portrayed a character in the movie version of Ready Player One, right? So Ready Player One is based off a book, but the movie version specifically,
I know the one you're talking
about. The actress, the main lead actress, she has like a big birthmark over her face, right? And she's supposed to be like, she's very insecure about this, and nobody's supposed to like her because
Hollywood
of this.
Gorgeous.
Yes, but literally every single thing else about her is classic actress gorgeous, except part of her face is slightly darker tint. Like it's not even that like noticeable constantly. Yeah. And it's like a whole big plot point that he loves her anyway, and this like it's like and where it literally doesn't mean anything. And that's like her only flaw.
That is great that you pointed out that with the attractiveness thing and the whole birthmark not really looking like anything. Like you even used the words, it didn't really amount to anything. Jamie in the comments saying clumsiness is great for a character in a comedic show. I think compelling flaws comes down to two factors. One, how you use it in your story and in relation to character growth. And two, if it has any impact. Because the clumsiness I was talking about before, like you were saying with yours, you can make clumsiness compelling. Because you can have a character just dropping things, tripping into things, just having a really bad time, but it's affecting the world around them. In the example of the clumsiness I was referring to, it's literally just, whoops, I slipped on some ice and fell on my bum. Oops.
Yeah.
It doesn't amount to anything. It's just a look how relatable this character is. She's just like you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I would argue the difference is it's not so much clumsiness is less compelling than overprotectiveness. Like, it really doesn't matter what flaw you use, because you can make a compelling flaw, but it comes down to how you use it in relation to your story as well as your character, because that is where the investment is. That is where your readers or your viewers want to, like, that's what they want to see. That's what they're invested in. So when the flaw has an impact on that, like, I was just watching Vox Machina today. Season 2 is out. It's incredible. Watch it. But
Spoilers?
they definitely actually big spoilers.
Okay,
So,
spoilers for
now.
Vox Machina Season 2, guys.
But this was something I had noticed. So there is a scene where, and this takes place after Season 1. So a character did die in Season 1, but they were brought back to life. And this character had, they were kind of edging on a romantic relationship with this other character. So far, it's not really come to fruition, but there's like teases here and there. But
I'm gonna tell you, they all happen, okay? All of the ships you see happen eventually.
I was about to say, they're definitely going
Every
in that
single one of
direction.
them.
But,
We warned
yeah,
you,
so this
Jamie. I'll tell you when it
character-
comes back.
this character basically loses someone very close to them, but is brought back. Then you see in the second season, they're building up this relationship between him and his sister, and like how close they are, how much they've looked out for each other, how scared he is to be without her. And he starts getting very overprotective. He's like, don't go
Oh,
into that
boy.
room unless I say so. Don't touch anything. Don't do anything. Don't even breathe. Just wait for me
My
until I
boy.
get back. Which is very over the
Too
top.
much.
Because his sister is very accomplished. She is a skilled fighter. She's a skilled hunter. She has proven herself time and time again. I'm not going to say
Okay, so
there's
Jamie, there's no spoilers then for you. You know the thing then.
So it's like when you see that, you're like, oh, come on. I'm just going to use the name since you know,
Yeah.
Jamie. You're like, Vax, come on. This is your sister. You saw what she could do in the first season, but you kind of compound that with everything he had been through in the first season. And now all these flashbacks are kind of helping you understand why he's so protective. But
I
it's
just
still
uh-huh.
at a detriment to Vex, his sister. Because what ends up happening is she starts kind of getting like a, hey, I could take care of myself. I could do this. I could do that. This leads to the team going off to try to find the artifact they need. And she ends up getting killed. And while it's not
I mean,
a
it's kind of
direct
Percy's fault, but
consequence- Yeah, no, it's definitely Percy's fault. He was careless.
I mean,
about
poor Percy, but Percy, come on.
But it was definitely it was
That's very true,
perfectly
Jamie.
it was perfectly set up. It was perfectly set up in that we saw how Vax was getting overprotective, and then we see the arc of that. He loses his sister, and he basically makes a
No.
deal with the Raven Queen to
Not
bring her
Percy.
back.
I love Percy though, Jamie. Percy's top 2 favorite characters.
So, when we're talking in terms of moving the story forward, Vax's overprotectiveness definitely moved the story forward. It had a consequence on the overall narrative, a really big consequence from what I understand.
Mhm.
Because I gotta be honest, I have not seen the whole
Oh,
of
yeah.
Critical Role. I've never even watched an episode, but I know the Raven Queen is very important, very significant.
Are you fully caught up now?
I am up to episode 9. Yes,
Okay.
I am fully caught up.
So you can already see it's doing shit.
Oh
Still.
yeah, it's
Like,
definitely
it's
doing
happening.
its shit. But this is
I love
how
Percy.
his flaw affected the direction of the plot. Now Vax has this burden throughout the rest of the series.
Mm-hmm.
So if it just amounted to Vax constantly saying, be careful, be careful, be careful, like that's not interesting. And that would make him annoying. Because it's just like, oh my god, shut up. She's proven herself, she's done this, she's done that, would you just shut up? But because it actually resulted in a consequence, now it's compelling.
No, Percy's
I really want to make a pun out of that and say he's Percyfect, but that is so lame, and I can't even deal with
I know
myself.
Taliesin. Yeah, I love Taliesin in general. Jamie, we're on the same page. Taliesin and then Sam. I do love Sam's characters as well.
I gotta say, the animators are knocking it out of the friggin' park. Oh, It's so good.
Yeah, well, Yeah, I love the animation, and I'm ready for the Mighty Nine. I haven't actually seen any. The only season I ever listened to was Vox Machina, and only to like the 50s. So I kind of don't know everything that happens, but I do know that they're releasing the Mighty Nine as well. So very excited.
My dad is actually listening to that one.
I know essentially everything that happened. So the way that the actual like animated show worked, they kind of like moved some things around. So it's like the Grog arc happens in my recollection before like the Feywild shenanigans. So I know the Grog arc. I didn't know the Feywild shenanigans.
Okay.
Honestly, Jamie, I found that I am definitely not a live, unedited, actual play content listener. I just can't do it. I can't do it on stream. I can't do it on podcast. I need that hardcore editing down version. But that's just me personally. The only reason I got through so much of Critical Role was because I literally had a job where I could put the headphones in for 8 hours a day. And yeah, that's all she wrote.
No, seriously, find a job gardening or just doing some mindless mundane tasks.
Weeding
you will
constantly.
get through D&D podcast so quickly. That's how I got through the Adventure Zone.
Yeah, that's how I got through the Adventure Zone.
In an entire summer.
Was weeding.
I was weeding every single day. I was weeding.
That's how I got through essentially the entire Adventure Zone.
I'm not quite there yet, unfortunately.
I haven't finished Ethersea, even though it's done.
Yeah, that one felt super short to me.
It was super short. I don't know why. I guess they weren't feeling it. But yeah.
Maybe they died. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I have to listen to it. But back to flaws.
Yes.
Like the flaw of me being unable to listen to live play fully, D&D, TTRPGs. Yeah, that's also a vibe, Jamie. I just literally, I honestly don't think I could ever listen to people just flat play D&D. It's just not for me.
Yeah, no.
But, that is my flaw. However, it's not particularly compelling because it gives me no detriment at all and has no causes. However...
it's not really pushing the plot forward.
Exactly. What is interesting, because my life is not to listen to finished podcasts, right? If that was the story, then that is related. But an interesting thing I thought about when you were talking, Mars, was sort of like when we get to shonen anime, right? I'm a sucker for shonen. Power friendship is my shit, hardcore, right? But I think that shonen can very easily fall into this trap of the flaw doesn't really drive the plot forward, right?
Do you have an example?
So I'm thinking a lot of examples would have to be sort of with the idea that it's like, oh, I am overprotective of my friends, or I can't be alone, or stuff. And if nothing ever happens where that actually is a thing, then it never matters, right? Because the whole power is friendship, right? But then you can take that same exact sort of formula and have those moments where it's like, and I'm separated, or and I'm, they leave me or something, overprotectiveness gets me into trouble, like the villain lures me out because of this, something like that. Then it's like, now there's a consequence.
As the trap.
Right, now there's a consequence. So it's definitely like an interesting, and then you can also see that as a lot of times shonen protagonists have a separate flaw unrelated to friends as well.
It's very funny that you mentioned this because it actually made me think of something else, but I'll respond to yours first.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting, and especially with shonen in particular, let's take the I am too overprotective flaw. A lot of showmen,
Showman.
a lot of
This is the
shonen,
greatest show. All right.
a lot of shonen, and even true for Western animation, which is a point I was about to get into, is that a lot of flaws are recontextualized to be attributes. And while it's not so obvious in shonen, a big area that you see this happen in is the romance genre. Specifically, the romance genre featuring stuff like Twilight, 50 Shades of Grey, The Kissing Booth, etc. Name any one of them. But essentially what's happening in those properties is we see a love interest really acting very vile.
Really horrible.
Like dangerous levels of horrible. And our filmmakers, in all their brilliance, recontextualize it into no, this is desirable because they're so overprotective of their love interest. Don't you want someone who looks out for you like that? Don't you want someone who cares for you so much they'd watch for you 24/7? It's very interesting. And that's something about compelling flaws where it's like, I think if these properties were a little more self-aware of that fact, maybe they themselves would be more interesting. But it's fascinating how sometimes we take flaws and recontextualize them as this is desirable. This is something we want. And that kind of comes back to what I said in the beginning. We're all people with different life experiences. It all comes down to how we interpret other people's actions. Most people look at that and go, wow, that's awful. That's toxic. I don't want to be anywhere near that. And someone else is going, no, want that.
What's very interesting that you mentioned about that is recently I had listened to a review of a book series called The Harrow Fair. And it's essentially exactly what you're talking about, where the love interest is this incredibly horrible, vile, disgusting person. Like when you actually think about it, he's doing horrifying things. He's a terrible person. Like I'm not even laying it on thick. Like this is the amount that he is so bad, and it is painted. Yikes. All these horrible things are just glossed over, right? All of these like taking advantage and all of this stuff are just glossed over, and because that's the pairing that the author wants and all this sort of stuff, and yet they have very weird feeling juxtapositions to people who have done the same exact thing that this love interest is doing, that the main character despises or left because of these things. And it's just the way that the writing is done, that if you're not thinking about it with like a
critical eye,
that it's just the way the author has written it that makes it so that it's kind of weird to see, and that makes it quote unquote different, right?
Well, this is definitely a little bit outside our realm of expertise, although I think it could be mimicked in a comic style. That comes down to how the author chooses to portray things. Like, what's the word choice? How are they setting the scene?
You could also see
in
it very
movies,
much
it comes down to the soundtrack, the background music, the sound effects, the actors.
A villain that is a hot villain versus a villain that is an evil, like a not conventionally attractive, or maybe actually just a monster, like these sort of things. Though it could do the exact same things, and you will have a numerous amount of people swooning over the hot villain, and definitely not as many, over the other villain, even though they're exactly the same in any other way.
Literally same
Right.
actions.
And it's solely how they've been painted, right?
Mm.
And usually and usually just the way that it does is that sort of that is very true, Jamie. But sort of, you end up putting more charm into the one guy, and then, and not as much charm into the other one, and it's just the way that they say the things, even though the actions in the end are the same, right? And this is what we were talking about with flaws before, the idea that the flaw is exactly the same, but the way that it is dealt with, the way that it's learned from, the way that it affects the story is completely different. That's what makes it the thing, right?
Yeah.
A very interesting example that I've seen going around the internet is there's a a sound, a viral TikTok sound, whatever, I don't know the fucking terminology, but that says that is essentially like I'm assuming a villain character, right? But definitely not the hero character. And it says like I'm trying to remember the exact words, but it's along the lines of like, you shouldn't love the hero. They would let you die in order to save the world. I would burn everything just to let you live. Like something along the lines of that. And it's like,
I actually have seen that one.
Yeah, it's been around.
The hero will sacrifice you for the world. The villain will sacrifice the world for you.
Exactly. And so that's sort of like an interesting thing. That could be then, in that context of this romance, be considered a compelling flaw of the hero, that they are too altruistic, too heroic.
Well,
right?
that is essentially, wasn't that Captain America's arc, essentially, that he was kind of too optimistic, too naive to see what was going on behind the scenes?
And the voice actor for it is very good for it. But
I wish I could tell you where it came from, Jamie. I just remember I heard it.
If you scroll through like Instagram Reels, or you scroll, through art TikTok, like you'll get there eventually.
It usually rears its head eventually.
It comes around. Everybody's done like some sort of
some kind of video for
it. Yeah. But I think that's the very interesting. Then scroll through Instagram Reels. Jamie, do you do Instagram? But I never go to TikTok intending to scroll, but then sometimes I scroll. So
it happens to the best of us. Do not be ashamed. It's not a flaw.
But what's interesting about that is the idea that I can't help you there then, Jamie. I don't know what it's from. But the idea of that it is all in the portrayal of the thing. Right? Honestly, I think that a good writer, a good storyteller could probably pick literally anything and make it a flaw. Right?
Oh,
I
agree.
think that's the magic of it. But the problem is when you don't want that flaw to actually be a problem, right? That's where you have the issue. When you add a flaw,
too clumsy,
because people tell you that all good characters have flaws, right? And it's true. That statement on its own is correct, but you are not technically giving your character a flaw if there is no detriment, if there's no learning from it, if there's no
learning
growth
from it, if there's no real consequence, if it doesn't even, if the character just gets up and goes, oh, that's annoying, back to my day, I guess.
If the fact that the flaw's existence could matter or not.
Well, here's the thing. If you create a flaw for your character, and then you could tell the story while removing that flaw completely and nothing has changed, that is not a compelling flaw.
Exactly.
If it exists for literally just the reason to exist, if it doesn't affect anything, it is not... You've either picked the wrong flaw for your character, or you've written about it in a way that it doesn't affect anything, and you got to go back to the drawing board, at least in my opinion.
No, I would challenge anybody here, Mars included, to tell me a character that they think is still a good character, yet is flawless.
Hmm.
that actually doesn't have a flaw?
I don't know if that's possible.
This
One,
is what I'm
because
saying.
I've seen one way too many things. So to go through each and every one of them and try to figure it out systematically is going to take forever. Um,
Yeah, but you'd
but
have to
I
say that it would
also
be kind of
just
odd.
don't think there's a character like that exists.
And I think that's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we don't like Mary Sue's and Gary Stu's and anything like that, is because that you can't really have
It's the bare minimum.
a character that is flawless, because even characters that are flawless in one aspect of their life, like I first think of Saitama, right? Saitama from One Punch Man is technically a flawless like physical strength, right? Nothing can beat him. He's very easy. But his flaw is that he kind of really doesn't care, right?
Yeah.
He kind of doesn't want to be a hero. That he's not really a hero, you know?
Very
he's just
socially
a dude.
awkward. He's really not in it for the
He
rescuing.
needed a job,
He just
you
did it
know?
because he was bored.
Exactly. You know, he needed a job, he needed money, and that's it, right?
Yep.
And so he still has this flaw that causes him to sort of, you know, not be
And-
around, you know,
And we
because he's
see
so
that as a
unassuming.
flaw because we interpret heroes to react a certain way and to be a certain way.
And also within the show, right? Within the show, like think the Garo arc, right? Within the Garo arc, Garo's not coming after Saitama because he has no idea who the fuck Saitama is, right? Because King has taken all the credit just accidentally, right? Has been there. So because of that, thus Saitama is never fighting the one guy that he needs to fight because Garo can kill everybody else, right? And so the flaw of Saitama being this unassuming guy who's not pushing extra hard to actually show, you know, the world that this is him, that he is the hero that he is, he's never put in the position to save the world, right? Because the organization that is dealing with this is never like, oh yes, we need Saitama to go there, right? And so that's the thing. Another one of his flaws, he's not particularly smart, right? That was the whole issue in the beginning. He did very bad on the written part of the test, right? So those sort of things didn't have to be a flaw for him. Like they didn't necessarily have to progress the story forward, but the way that the story is, it is important. I think that makes sense.
No, I would agree. I'm reading Jamie's comment on the side here. I think it would have to be a very specific world. I don't think it'd be completely impossible.
See, and I would disagree.
I think it's really hard because stories are told to get from point A to point B. You start the story at one point and you end the story in another. And through that, the characters change, the world changes. Even if it is slice of life, something changes along the way to make the story worth the investment. And I don't know. I'm not sure if it's possible to have that kind of story without a character that has some kind of flaw. So maybe we should look at the characters from our comic for a little bit.
Sure.
Because I think we're familiar with them at this point.
Are we? I don't know. I
Well-
don't really know them very well, I guess.
Well, we're familiar.
I'm saying I don't know them, no. Who's this guy? I just color him.
Oh, you don't? Well, let me introduce you.
Mhm.
So, who you're coloring is Ferrix. He is, he definitely plays around. He's got a sense of humor.
He does
He
fuck
is
around, he does
protective.
find out.
He does fuck around and find out. But he's also protective and caring of his friends. When it's said there's an intruder on the island, he doesn't want to stop until they're found. But he's also very quick to anger. In that regard, maybe someone's trying to explain something to him and he's just not willing to listen. He can be impulsive at times as well. Maybe he makes a quick decision when a little more planning would have been the better option. Or maybe a character wanted to plan and he just ran in without a second thought.
Ferrex rushes in.
Ferrex rushes in, indeed. Now that would be a hindrance to the other characters around him. For the temper, well, he's lashing out at his friends. That's not exactly a good thing. If they're trying to explain something to him and he interrupts and lashes out, they don't get to get their point across. And you could have a situation where communication is cut off. In regards to rushing in, element of surprise. If that's something Milano wanted, well, that's gone. Gotta change the plan on the fly now. Oh no, the enemy spotted Ferrex too early. Crap, we're in trouble. It is a detriment to the other characters. Hotson, one of the best examples of this. And it was very interesting writing him. Because for me, there was always a point of, what if I'm taking this too far? It is no secret at this point that Hotson is cautious around the callers. And he definitely has some biased views of them. And I always kind of wondered to myself, how far do I take this? Because if I push this flaw too far, he's not going to be redeemable. He's going to become very unlikable, very hateable, and this is the character we are asking our audience to spend the most time with. It was a very, very thin tightrope that I found myself walking. Because
I love him, so we're okay.
Oh, I'm very glad. Well, Jamie, it's very interesting you say that. Because Hotson is the main character, again, this is a character that I am asking you as the audience to spend a lot of time with, to find some humanity in, to find that...
I don't think it's even that. I think it's
connection.
A very simple... No, Jamie, not all characters have to be redeemable, but certain characters we want to redeem, and the whole point of Hotson's story is to be redeemed, so he needs to be
Hotson's story is
redeemable.
Essentially a redemption arc.
That, like, Zuko, right? That's like saying Zuko's entire storyline is that he is redeemed, right? So if they pushed him too far, and that he's no longer redeemable, aka Azula, right, that would just not be believable or compelling, or it'd very be like a oh, okay, I'm supposed to like this guy now, like it wouldn't be there.
Well, Jamie, what's interesting about The Great Gatsby is that was a story where every character had a very obvious flaw. Gatsby.
I don't remember The Great Gatsby very well.
Well, I would say Gatsby is a pathological liar. What was his name? Tim? I think it's Tom.
What Jamie is saying
he's a controlling ass.
The Great
Daisy
Gatsby
is flighty and indecisive, and Nick is passive as hell.
And that's what Jamie's saying, is that Jamie's saying that they were designed to be hated. I don't know if I'd say that. I feel like you have sympathy towards Gatsby at very least.
I would not argue that. You do have sympathy toward Gatsby because you see how far he is going. And I think the reason for that is you find something in the character that you connect to. Whether it's his journey to try to win Daisy's heart, because some of us have experienced romance, some of us have experienced crushes where we really want the other person to notice us, but we're like, oh, I'm a nothing, I'm nobody. I think at least middle school has given us that experience. Or whether we relate to his desire to be more than he is. It doesn't even need to relate to romance. It just relates to, hey, essentially Belle from Beauty and the Beast. I want more than this provincial life.
I have an interesting question.
There's always something. I'm sorry, Ori.
Go on.
But there's always something in a character that has to connect back to our humanity, that we have to find relatable. With Zuko, it's the loving
hold on.
relationship
Before you
between
get
him
too far.
and his uncle. Yes.
Before you get too far on that note, I want to stop because Jamie said something very specific that goes in kind of what you were going on to. But before we move away from The Great Gatsby, is that Jamie has not met a person that was sympathetic towards Gatsby before. I don't think that I personally am. Mars, I don't know if you personally are. I can't relate to that because I have, I'm not Gatsby. However, there obviously are people that can relate. And because of this, I didn't particularly enjoy the story of The Great Gatsby. Same with I didn't particularly enjoy like A Streetcar Named Desire stuff because I'm not the target audience. Right? Like that was not a book that I would have ever read if I was given the freaking choice. Okay? like it is not the book that I want to read. However, they are classics because people can relate. And when you interact,
people at the time of its release did find something relatable.
I also think that people nowadays can feel relatable. I listen to a lot of like Reddit reading stories, and you sort of get to a point where it's like, God, the people that are out there are wild. And the amount of people that I could see from reading these Reddit stories that could relate to Gatsby, that would enjoy a book, about that, are more than you expect, right? Because you sort of end up having this, I wouldn't call it a bubble, but just innately, you interact with people that share a lot of views with you or share a lot of, things, that you like, that you dislike, share a lot of,
that's
experiences.
How friendships are made. Who would have thought? We like to hang around people that share our same opinion.
So it's very much like, I think if you did a poll of everybody that read the book The Great Gatsby and actually read it, right, didn't skim it because they had to do it for school, I bet you would find a decent amount of people that found at least someone in there sympathetic, right? At least someone in there that they related to on some sort of level or anything like that. And because of that, I don't think that means that every character was literally designed to be hated. I think that means that every character was supposed to be relatable to very specific kinds of people that were, very prevalent at the time that they were written. So that means my question mainly for you, Jamie, is did you like The Great Gatsby? Because if you didn't, then that's exactly the point. They weren't compelling flaws to you. If you did, then I don't know what to say. You just like watching the world burn. But because I would say I did not like The Great Gatsby, right? But it was not meant for me because I can see from like an outsider analytic perspective that. See, there you go. I liked it as commentary, but despise every character. And I think that's an interesting thing to point out as well. A lot of media today is character driven, which I personally enjoy. Where The Great Gatsby it was definitely more on a commentary side of that.
Well, that was interesting because the characters, at least in The Great Gatsby, were essentially vessels of like ideas of ways the rich at that time lived. Like Tom acted like he was all that. Daisy, I think it's even a line in the book, they're careless people. They break and then they just leave.
And so that's why I don't think you could actually
Nick
manage...
is an audience insert. He is the vessel through which the audience is experiencing the story.
Like a lot of
you are
stories
seeing everything through his eyes. That's why he barely has any character.
And when you look at a lot of stories of the times, there's a lot of audience insert characters. It's a big thing written about that sort of time. I'm just sort of thinking back on sort of all of the books that you read at that period of time, and it's like, I mean, so many, like a very common. I mean, look at Lovecraft.
Look at Desire, Raisin in the Sun.
Mm-hmm. But that's exactly the point, because they're your thoughts, Jamie. They're not his thoughts. They were never meant to be his thoughts.
Well, if you want to take it a step further, they're not even the character's thoughts. They're the author's thoughts. The author is writing from this perspective, so we can conclude that this is how they interpret the world around them as well.
But to make a very long point short, is that I think that the only reason a book is, well known or well beloved is because someone did find sympathy someone did find, not even sympathy, relatability.
Relatability is the key word here. Jamie, that's the one I never read.
Never read it either.
That one was not on our reading list.
I honestly hated almost everything I read in school. I hated reading for school because I am not that kind of book person that, the kind of books they want you to read. I would never read those books.
I did enjoy The Great Gatsby. I did enjoy that one, I'll be honest.
I literally can't think of the only school book that I can sit here and think of that I liked was I actually read it before it happened and then thus had a terrible experience existing with it because the whole freaking unit was foreshadowing and predicting, and it's I literally just read this book. I know exactly what's going to happen. So there is no scenario where I either say it and I lie, or I say it and everybody's like, oh, you're right, and I've spoiled it. It's not... I had such a bad time. I have so many gripes for 6th grade English class specifically. I'm not joking. Now that I think about it, every single grudge I have in life is specifically from 6th grade English class.
Oh, damn. I'd ask who hurt you, but now we know it's 6th grade English.
So it was partly the teacher, partly the... Everybody would have yelled at me. Even the teacher would have been upset with me. I literally was like, how am I supposed to participate in their unit? And they're like, deal with it. I'm like, oh god, okay. I actually punched that teacher in the face and did get in trouble, but that's a story for... I think I've told this
Wait,
story.
What?
Do I want to get this off topic? I loved him as a science teacher.
Wanna.
He was one of my favorite science teachers, but I hated him as an English and reading teacher. Oh my god. Yeah, essentially, I'm classic goody two-shoes student, and we were learning something. It must have been in science class. We were learning something, and I was sitting relatively close to the teacher, and I had been taking martial arts for about, what's the math there? 4 years at that point? 3-4 years at that point? And,
pretty experienced.
And I was sitting near the teacher, and we were on some unit. I don't exactly remember what was going on, but something was happening, and people kept asking, I think it was stupid questions, or they were doing stupid things. I don't exactly remember, but essentially the teacher said to me specifically, Ori, come up and punch me in the face. And I went, what? Actually? I'm a 6th grader, so what, I'm 11, right? I'm you really want me to punch in the face? He's like, no, I'm just joking, because that was it was a pinch me sort of phrase that he was apparently trying to say. Mm-hmm. And then a little later in that same period, he goes, Ori, come here, punch me in the face. I must be dreaming. He doesn't even say that. He doesn't even say I must be dreaming. He just says, punch me in the face. And I say, you really want me to punch you in the face? And he says, yes. And so I punched him in the face. I didn't even punch him that hard. I didn't even punch him that hard. I punched him in his cheek, and I didn't even I wasn't even trying, it wasn't light, but it wasn't me trying to knock him out or something. It was just, I punched him. And he sort of had a shocked moment of a what? I was I literally had to hold back to it. I was you told me to, you told me to. And I asked again, and you told me to. And he's like, no, it's fine. Apparently he went to the doctor the next day because he thought I might have fractured his jaw. I didn't, but it was just, he had a bruise and he wasn't prepared for that. This was so well known. At the end of the school year, we made calendars, and on the front of the calendars was this word. It wasn't a jumble, but a word, art sort of mixture of a bunch of things that happened.
Documented.
No. It was a bunch of things that happened. And it was a list of all these sort of things, we won, homecoming or something, that sort of shit. And then it went, Ori punched this teacher in the face. And I had never told my parents, I never told my parents that I did this, about the whole thing, because, I never got in trouble, I didn't get called to the principal's office or anything, because he knew that it was his fault. But I was, so embarrassed I didn't tell my parents, so I didn't want them to see this calendar with this thing on it. And it was printed on yellow paper, so I cut a strip of the paper off, so now it's slightly off center, but I had a strip of paper that I then glued on top of the word that said the line that says Ori punched this teacher in the face. And I glued it down. And so I covered it, so it was like whited out. And I don't think my parents ever knew. Actually, I think I got away with it.
Wow.
I don't think they would have actually punished me or anything, but it was just like, you're 11, you punch the teacher in the face.
Oh,
I
yeah.
had never done any
You
shit like that
panic.
before. I'm like, like goody two shoes, like, yo, you get called to the principal's, ooh, and it's for like literally going to gifted and talented shit. Like it was like. I
Yeah.
was not that kid.
Oh,
So I
I
was
hated that.
terrified. I was terrified. Horrified. That's the story of how Ori punched their teacher in the face. But yeah, so I'm upset with
I
that
never
teacher.
knew that.
Yeah, I'm upset with that teacher for making me reread a book that I had literally just read and knew all the answer to, and specifically making it like a foreshadowing slash predicting unit. I was so pissed about that.
Mhm.
And then that was the same year that they did the like boy book girl book switch thing.
Oh,
That
I
definitely
hated
ranted
that.
about this, where the guy that I was paired with gave me a book that I really, really liked, and then he gave me not the next book in the series, but the last book in the series, and I just blindly trusted him. And then I read the last book in the series, and I went, ooh, I want to read more, and I essentially spoiled the entire series for me, and I couldn't read the whole series because it was all conglomerated into this one book that I didn't even read. Very upset.
Oh,
Yeah. Goodness, Jamie.
I bet you.
A
I actually
feisty
got
child.
stabbed with a pencil in
Oh,
kindergarten. I guess that's just the stabby age for most people.
If we're going off on this tangent, the
We
last,
apparently are.
the last
Hey,
quote unquote.
these are flaws that progress the plot of our lives forward. There we go. We brought it back.
The last quote unquote delinquent thing I did was in elementary school. I think it was second grade. There was like the boy girl war. I bet every school had one or something. It's my understanding. It's just something
God,
that
it's
happens
so
when you're a
stupid in
child.
hindsight.
A no-fa. I don't know what a no-fa is.
A knife.
I know.
What's that you got? A
And I had
no-fa?
been taking martial arts. I've been taking martial arts. And this kid that actually lives down the street from me came up to like me and my group of friends who are not trying to participate in this quote unquote war, right? Him and his group of friends came over, and I don't know, they were trying to grab us or something. I choked him. I choked
Holy
him. We were minding our own damn business. Get the fuck away from us.
Oh my god.
I choked him. This is a great story. I choked him. Okay, I didn't choke him out or anything, but like I was choking him and I was holding him back, and he was like the leader of the group. I let him go. He told the teachers or whatever, the aides. They came. They're like, you have to sit in the timeout bench until the end of recess. Recess ended like a minute later, and they're like, you have to sit back here tomorrow. I didn't come back tomorrow. They never got me. I technically never got in trouble. Later, years later, this
Corey,
guy.
go sit on the bench.
I live right next to the library, and that's where all the kids would hang out. That's like the place to hang out. And so this kid that I had choked in second grade would ride his bike over here, and I like recognized him when I was walking. I was like, oh hey, this kid's name. He looked horrified, and he would not ever associate with me after that. He was one of the delinquent kids too, so honestly it was kind of like a weird hierarchy thing there, but I don't know.
Yeah, it was like if he was a delinquent kid, it's like,
Goodness,
oh, I'm
Jamie.
top of the pyramid, no one can take me down, and suddenly you put him in his place.
It was like, no. It was like, don't, like, we're not fucking with you, don't fuck with us.
Yeah, did I don't think I had delinquent moments in school. I think I just had delinquent moments with like maybe my parents, and all that really was me lying that I took the late bus home when I walked home.
Oh,
That was basically the biggest thing.
yeah, those are the two delinquent things that I ever had. And to me, they were both like,
Oh,
like,
and
not
sneaking out of
really
school.
my fault. Oh, you snuck out of school?
Yeah, well, it's such a strong word. So, in our high school, most people learn how to drive through driver's
Oh,
ed.
you just
And
didn't
when
have a lunch
do-
pass?
I
Like, you
didn't
went
have a
out on
lunch pass.
Oh, okay, then who cares?
Yeah. It wasn't even a full sneak. One of my friends
Jamie.
who had the special sticker that gets you out of school if you have the license lent theirs to me. I put it inside my lanyard, like card to card, so the back looked like it was part of that card. They barely even checked it, and I was just like,
Mhm.
all right, sweet, I'm going to Wendy's.
Yeah. Now, the second you said that, I'm like, oh yeah, it's not really a sneak. You're right.
Yeah, I'm trying desperately to think of delinquent moments so I don't look like such a goody two-shoes, but fuck, I really was a goody two-shoes.
I mean, I would have called
I did
myself a
not
goody
like
two
getting
shoes.
in
It was
trouble.
more just like circumstances that surrounded my life ended up on these two moments. Jeez, Jamie, you were a nuisance.
Damn.
It's okay. Dylan was a nuisance too.
Mm.
Not in that kind of way though, but he was a nuisance as well.
Hey, my brother was a nuisance, if that counts for anything.
There you go. You gave all the nuisance, energy went to your brother, Mars. So you
I
didn't
guess
get any.
so. It passed me over. It skipped a generation.
Yeah, I mean, makes sense. That's how it works, Jamie. That's why we get it. Dylan didn't get diagnosed with anything. He was just a he was
But coming back to compelling flaws, any
Yes.
questions or any thoughts?
Comments, concerns, theories, projections.
Given anything I've said so far, or maybe clarification, or maybe even a hypothetical scenario.
Mm-hmm. Brain skittles.
Brain skittles. Jamie, I gotta find a situation where I can use that more often. That's brilliant.
Say brain skittles more often.
Hell yeah. It's too good.
It's
too
Mars.
too
You
good.
know how I know you've grown as a flatter.
I'm leaving less white space.
No, you no longer draw. You color Aster's wings correctly.
Ah, yes, such progress. Well, I usually have the reference sheet pulled up every time I'm doing Aster just to make sure I'm counting those wings correctly.
It's not even that. Before you couldn't tell the difference between his inner wings and his outer wings. It looks like.
Well, once it became a lot more clear, then it became easier.
Makes sense.
And with practice, of course.
But there you go.
that's-
Growth.
That's also the thing with writing.
That was Mars's
compelling-
flaw.
Well, that's the thing with writing compelling flaws as well. The more stories you write, the more chances you get to try it out, the better you get at doing it. And sometimes to the point where it works its way organically into the story and you barely have to think about it.
That's true.
Coatson, for example, like I said, he was definitely one I put a lot of thought into because I wanted to be careful with the portrayal, but I also wanted to make sure the balance was there, that it was still a flaw and that it was still clear, like, this is not okay behavior, but it's not unlearnable behavior. And that comes down to the whole theme of our story, essentially. We have characters that are open-minded and have the potential to unlearn these implicit biases, while others just refuse to grow, refuse to learn. And those characters get their just desserts. So it did very much play into the overall themes that we're trying to convey with this story, which
I think a lot of it
you
also.
don't see too often,
That's
I
very
believe. Like here, it's very much Hoatson's flaw, especially for the first 2 seasons, is what's driving the story. Like, it is at the helm of the ship, for lack of a better term, because
Hoatson's
all
flaw,
of
take
his-
the wheel.
no, literally,
Mhm.
because his interactions with the pirates are all based on his implicit bias against them and based off of what he thinks he knows about callers. And that's the driving force, you know. He wants to get home. He wants to be away from them. He's only putting up with them for this short time because of what they can give him.
And I think that's an
very
important
toxic behavior.
sort of balance that we got to.
No, really, Jamie,
No, Jamie,
you are not wrong.
That's
and
very it.
that you can tell that's why I was so cautious of how I portrayed Hotsun.
You'll see it very much when we get to introducing these other characters slowly, which happens relatively soon. I think there's like 1 or 2 episodes before we get there. Like, it's not very far, but before like Aster and Ferrex and Sinnit are actually like in the picture. What was I gonna say? I think the balance that was very helpful, Mars, is that Hotsun sort of has these moments of, I guess I would say clarity, but not necessarily epiphany, but like you very much see it in the hangouts, right? Especially with Sinnit and Aster. Like, you have these moments where he's just vibing, right? Well, and then he puts his foot in his mouth, right?
And
like,
this
that
was
is the
one
whole
of these
thing.
Things where it's like, I wonder if it's a universal experience that people understand. Because if I could just bring into my world for a moment. So I grew up in a very, we'll keep going with this angle. So I'll say predominantly white neighborhood.
It's very white.
It is incredibly white. Like, oh my god, it looks like toaster strudel, but without the fun sprinkles. Basically, I did not see a lot of diversity until I got to college. And I won't say it was like a huge change for me. Like, I never thought any less of anyone. To me, people are people. We're all on this planet just to live our lives. We all want the same things. I don't get what's so hard to understand about that, but there are certainly people out there who would disagree with me. I have my experiences. I know what mine are, I suppose. But
it's more just like a literal mathematical equation, right? You're a person, and you just, based on where you live, just didn't interact with them.
Exactly. So
like,
it was like
by
the time I got to college,
like non-white students in our grade, I think.
Maybe like 5,
yeah,
or
max.
7 by the time we got to high school.
Yeah, which is when everybody goes up.
I have to go through the yearbook again, but essentially, like, once I got to college, because I was being surrounded by more diverse groups, I was able to learn about them, and that was something let's be honest, probably wouldn't have gotten unless I went out of my way to research it. But not only was I learning about different cultures, I was hearing it from the perspective of people in those cultures. So it's like it just brings you into their world, and you start to understand a bit more. Like, maybe you only had book interpretations or movie interpretations to go on. And let's be honest, movie interpretations, at least in the early 2000s, were terrible for representation. So essentially, you only have stereotypes to work off of. But by meeting someone, talking to them, getting to know them, dismantles all that. And with Hotsun, that's kind of what I was trying to portray, is that he has this idea in his head of what colors are, what they act like, what he should be afraid of. But through these hangout sessions with Aster, Ferrex, Sinnit, he starts to realize, like, oh, they want the same things. They're just trying to make their way in the world. Wow, I never thought about like that before. And it's not a 360 change. He doesn't change immediately. He's still very biased, but you see the foundations of his logic start to crumble. And I thought those moments were so important to have because, one, it shows he is open-minded. He's willing to learn. He doesn't just shut down. This is what I believe. This is the only way to believe. He is willing to grow. And I felt that was very important to show through those hangouts. Honestly, the hangout episodes were my favorite to write. Those ones just flowed so easily because I knew what the goal was, and I knew what the intention was, and the purpose of each hangout, which just made the words so much easier. Just made it come so much easier. I don't know when you sent that comment, Jamie, but yes. Yes, comparing a white neighborhood to toaster strudel. I mean, I'm thinking of those pastries that go in toasters. They're pretty pasty. Pasty and pale.
There. No, it really is. He was forced into a situation.
If I would say frenemies.
It's more like the idea. Hotsun was forced into a situation because of the events, to a situation he literally never would have had otherwise. Right? This scenario would not exist if Hotsun didn't get stranded on this island. Right? Like that is the whole catalyst of everything in that. And because of that, he gets this whole sort of forced, he sort of has to force interact with these people. And now I think what made it so that while he has this very specific flaw that he's not unlikable is the fact that it's very much a putting his foot in his mouth and then doubling down as being, because I would say less of his flaw is necessarily being bigoted, and more of his flaw is the fact that he can't be wrong. He can't admit to being wrong, right? Because when you see it manifests in sort of how he interacts, right? Is that he's doing fine. He has these sort of views, but he's asking questions, right? But it's the way that he says them that's bad. And then when that happens, he's like, "How dare you say that I was bad?" And that's why I always
challenge my intellect. That's why I always equate Hotsun's response as implicit bias, because it's not like he's going out of his way to be mean and nasty, but he can't help but let that implicit bias slip through. Like for example, with Aster. Aster is a cook, but he held a job before coming to live on the island with Milano and the rest. So at one point, Hotsun discovers this, and he goes, "You had a job?" And it's the expression, it's the tone, it's the complete and utter disbelief that this caller could have ever had a job, this pirate could have ever had a job before becoming a pirate. And that's what gets the characters like, "Oh, well, I don't want to talk to you. You're judging me, even if you're not saying it. Your actions, your tone, your word choice is conveying that you're judging me." Well, Jamie, if you do feel called out, then I've done my job.
Exactly. Then we've succeeded. Please, if anybody's literally like, "God damn, I feel called out," like, thank you. High praise, if I'm being honest. High praise.
It's so funny because they always say, "Write what you know." Now, I am not going to say I am an expert on this stuff. One of the analogies that Ori and I always use when talking about the characters and implicit bias and the bigotry is like compare it to homophobia or having internalized homophobia, essentially. That's the comparison we always use. And it's interesting because, like, I've never come across these situations that the characters are in. But it's like you start constructing the personality, you start constructing the backstory, and you're kind of able to see how all the pieces fit together. Oh no, Jamie. I can only imagine what Thanksgiving is like.
I don't know if you got it wrong. Well, I mean, that's definitely how one of the hangouts kind of goes. That's why Hotson and Ferrix butt heads so damn hard.
Oh yeah. It's interesting because in terms of flaws, they're kind of cut from the same cloth. Neither likes to back down. Hotson because he prides himself a lot on his intellect, and Ferrix because he just has pride as a caller, as a person.
And he refuses to back
places
down.
a lot on his importance
He
and his
won't
crew.
back off anymore.
Oh geez. Engineers? Oh boy.
Oh god. Actually,
Jamie, I come from a family where most of the people are either engineers or computer science or some kind of programmer. No one can ever be wrong ever.
it's so funny. My family has such a weird, like, spattering of everything. Job-wise, career-wise. But my father is thus the only engineer. And so they get him all these funky engineering, like, you know, joke things. And one of the ones I know is a shirt that he has that says, "Engineers solving problems you didn't even know you had," something like that. Or like making problems to solve. It was something, I think it was solving problems you didn't even know you had. I think that's like what it was. And it was like, so they just all, like, if they see the word engineer, it's like, oh yes, Ori's father would like this. Yes, Uncle Ori's dad, and they just get it for him.
Oh jeez.
It's very funny. No, honestly, my family gatherings are just loud. They're just very loud. We're very loud. We're loud people.
Ah, yes, smart. See, Jamie, I used to be that way. But I did start, like, arguing a little bit more when I'm like, no, you have that wrong. I know I'm right.
It's so funny because, yes, we argue at the family gatherings.
I can still be wrong. But if I'm right, like,
it's so funny.
Then I'm right.
I find that so funny. My family gatherings are very much like, so what did you do? And then if somebody does get on like a science thing, it's like actually something I could talk about. Otherwise, I talk with my two other cousins, and that's it. We just talk about shows and
yeah. The big thing. The big thing I get is, so how's school going? How's your graduate program? What are you learning? How are your professors?
I told Dylan this because this saved me very recently. Just at the end of January, we had my grandfather's birthday. So that was like our most recent family get together. And I had the best time. And you know why? Because I could talk about Dylan's escapades the whole time, right? I could talk about how well Dylan's doing in school and how well he did at his interview and getting this job and he's working and he's doing all this stuff. And it's like, I could talk about Dylan. I didn't have to talk about me at all.
Woohoo! Bragging rights!
I literally told Dylan, I was like, thank you for doing things. Now I can just talk about you. And that's the secret.
A very compelling flaw, Jamie.
Yeah, there you go. Well, definitely, it'll be interesting to see how Hotson's comes to a head.
Oh, indeed. Indeed. And it's certainly, I used Ferrix and Hotson as the two big examples here, but it's not like the others don't have as well. Everyone is perfectly flawed. Practically fraud in every way.
Yeah, it is, Jamie, isn't it? It's so much easier. It's way easier. Hui coyodal. But yeah. Speaking of, did you get to watch the new Evil, Jamie? I know it's like midterm times and stuff, so maybe you didn't, but I know Johnum's in midterms, so
great.
but yeah. I think it's funny Mars, because I remember that when we were making all of these characters, we did sort of write down a very specific flaw for each of them that has to do with everything. But then after making them, they sort of, morph into more than one. Because I don't think, most realistic characters, at least, are going to just have one flaw, right? Or they kind of blend with other things. Because when Mars and I...
Very true.
When Mars and I were making this story, we had a very specific idea of, like, what all these characters brought to the deal, like, how they had... Honestly, it was more like insecurities that are also, like, flaws and everything like that.
Insecurity can certainly be a flaw.
Exactly. And so we started with this, like, very specific list of each of these characters has this specific flaw, right? And then just sort of from there, it manifested into, Ferrix and Hotson both won't back down, whether, even if they know they're wrong or whether they know they're wrong or not, very, Hotson's very protective of his intellect, I think is the big one, right? Like if someone feels he's challenging his intellect is when he sort of gets real, fussy about it and real angry and, snappy. Hotson's snappy. That's the word I want.
Hotson is snappy. When his buttons are pushed enough, he will bite back.
He's a very think before you speak kind of person too, in a weird way when he gets angry, because he sort of goes from this like moderately reserved person to just I gotta say something now,
and they're off.
Yeah, and he just goes at it without thinking. So it's a very interesting sort of
down.
Yeah. Very interesting sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring up the original flaws that we had come up with, because like you said, having a singular flaw, that worked with the genre that we had initially chosen, where it was like a buddy comedy, where it's like the story is very basic, the characters are very basic, so in that context, like having that one big thing would play into the comedy, would play into the genre. But when we switched over to a more drama-driven story, that's when the characters started getting more complex, and by extension, the flaws started getting more complex. Because that's... My goal is always... if you can make it feel like it could happen in real life, that's where you get the relatability. That's where you get that connection.
Mm-hmm.
And people are very, very complicated creatures. If you've ever taken a psychology class or even just interacted with another person,
an animal behavior class,
you will know that. Well, animal behavior class as well, and I think that was actually something, because I'll be honest, I do not have that list anymore. I have no idea where it is, but I think originally our flaws were related to the species of animal they were.
They were not.
They were not?
They were never. No.
Okay, good to know. Never mind.
They were never.
But I do think it kind of helped guide us a little.
The big thing that their animals had
Maybe
to
not
do
majorly.
with like their way in society. That was the biggest thing that was like related to their animals.
Yeah. Wow, I went so outside the lines. What the hell?
On the one you're looking at or the one you're doing?
The one I'm looking at, like the one you're working on, the sprig of hair, like,
yes.
Wow, what was I thinking?
It's old, okay? Don't beat yourself up.
Oh, it pains me.
Yeah, now you know how I feel. Now you know how I feel, huh? when I show you those images, this is something we talked about briefly.
Why are my lines all over the goddamn place?
This is a very common artist flaw. And that is the fact that, you see your own, errors more than anyone else will. Or most people will. And so when I continue to look at very old, pieces, sometimes I just look and I go, oh God, I hate this whole thing. It's so bad, I need to redo it. But I just don't have time, obviously, to redo the whole thing. And so I actually have taken to now sending Mars some of the more egregious ones. Some of the ones that sort of I'm sitting here and I'm looking at it
rate them now.
and I'm like, oh god, I would want to redraw this, but the less I have to redraw, the better. And so I like take screenshots and I like message Mars. I'm like, Mars, on 1 to 5 rate 1, this looks absolutely horrible, even I see that, and 5 is nah, I literally see no difference. And it's funny because the first set I sent you, all of those were ones that it's like I want to redraw. They were all at like a 3 for me. But she rated one of them a 4 and one of them a 5, so I only redrew one of them, and it was like, oh, okay. I'll accept it.
I really
can
didn't
accept
think
it.
they were that
Again,
bad.
I can accept it when you say it. You know what I'm saying?
Because I am the general public, and if the general public thinks it's okay.
And if you think it's okay, then I can live with it, I guess.
I really didn't think it was that bad. It was just the one that looked really derpy.
And it got redrawn. It got redrawn.
Look at little Sinet. So happy.
Yes.
I really hope my lines show how they're getting better in future.
Oh, they are. I literally looked at like your most recent one.
I am in Spain without the S.
I looked at your most recent one, and I really don't have like a problem cleaning them up. Like it's still a lot less work than if I had to do it, all myself. So, don't beat yourself up that bad.
My goal is to create as little work for you as possible.
I'm gonna warn you. I'm gonna warn you. There will probably never be a time that they're perfect, just because it's me, right? Just because it's me. Okay, that's just life.
True.
Okay, just because it's me, there will always be a I can take 2 seconds to do this one thing slightly more, perfect, right? Just because I'm a perfectionist, right? And just because it's like, a second set of eyes sometimes. I mean, me looking back at the freaking things I drew and be like, when did I think this was okay?
There's no down going on in your room, Jamie? Sounds like a wrestling match.
Is it friendly wrestling though? Because I do a lot of friendly wrestling, but if it's angry wrestling, then that's a problem.
Friendly wrestling, is that what we're calling it?
I'm not joking. In college, the amount of times that I threw people off the couch, yeah, hell yeah. It's a friendly, you gotta have them brotherly Italian noises, right? If you ain't putting people in full Nelsons just for fun, then what are you doing? Come on.
Yeah. You're not doing it right.
You ain't doing it right. It's no wonder that my friends were definitely very odd people.
You were in good company.
I mean, they would let me wrestle them, so worked out. Didn't seem angry? That's good then. Chill time.
Once again, any questions about compelling flaws or even plot, story, anything in
literally
general,
anything writing,
I'm
if
more
you
than happy to answer.
Or Jamie, if you have anything about the comic from when you read it, I know you were busy the last time. You want to talk about the comic? It's too gentle. I didn't have any double bunk beds, so there wasn't really there wasn't really much more.
Should have gone for the double
no.
bunk bed.
I threw them off of the couch, and then the rest of the interaction does happen on the floor. It starts on the couch, and then you push off of the couch, because the person who pushes off of the couch and stays on the couch, it has a better advantage. Anakin and I have the high ground and all that, right?
Anakin, I have the high ground. Too good.
But yeah, Jamie, if you have any fun things to talk about with the launch of the comic, since I know you were busy the other day, last week.
Yes.
This is also the time for that, or anybody else chilling.
Thoughts, ideas, comments.
This one was definitely one of our shorter topics, but such is life. Some we rant, some we don't. Also depends on the night.
It happens sometimes. I gotta be honest, guys. Tonight I am absolutely exhausted. My neighbor has been trimming trees all week. For those first 3 days, I was at school. I was away from it. I was home today, and all I heard all day long was.
Oh, I know what to get you for your birthday.
I'm like, oh my god. Like, one, I turned on Vox Machina to drown it out, and two, I ended up getting a headache. So I was like, I cannot take that noise anymore. I really hope that they're done cutting down the trees, because one, it just makes me sad, and two, I cannot do a second day with a headache. I have too much crap to do.
Oh, I'm so glad, Jamie. New episode coming out on Monday, so, you know, even more to be
Yes!
excited about.
Ah, the story continues. I'm so excited. It's really wild that we've made it to this point. Because it's like this is not the first time I've been involved in projects with a friend. And the pattern is usually like, oh, we're interested for a bit, but then it kind of falls to the wayside. And, you know, in the beginning, I was like, well, maybe that's going to happen here, but hey, why not? Could be fun. But then it started getting serious. And I was like, there is no way I am letting this die.
We're like, it'll
I
happen. Even if there's like a big
refuse.
hiatus because God, life sucks, but it'll happen.
I refuse to let this die.
We're making it.
Oh, I can't wait either,
Oh,
Jamie. That's
that'll
pretty
be fun.
exciting.
That'll be fun. And then that'll be even more interesting when we come out with the comic
The
dub.
voiceovers, yeah.
Yeah. Because that is a plan. That is
By
a goal
by
that we
week,
have.
Jamie.
Yeah.
So Mondays every other week. We're posting on a bi-weekly basis.
So it wasn't this past Monday. It'll be this coming Monday.
Yes. And then skip a
Also, the
Monday,
Discord has
and
it.
then
If you
Monday
ever have a
after that.
question for it, I do keep putting them as events in the Discord, as well, just as an additional place to have them. But yeah, every other Monday.
So, you know, we should have content going until about June, July.
Longer than that.
A whole year.
Mars, I don't think you understand. With over 30 entries? Every other week means in a time scale.
Oh, okay, that's...
There's 52
You're
weeks
right,
in a
I
year.
know.
There's 52 weeks in a year, Mars, and you divide that in half. How many do you get? How many do you get?
So, I cannot do math at the moment, but I know that
You
is
get
a lot.
26 weeks. Is that less than 30? Yes. That's over a year.
The first issue was a Wednesday?
No, it was a Monday. The 30th
It was
Monday.
definitely a Monday, Jamie.
Mhm.
I'm not sure what posted on Wednesday.
Yeah, I don't know. They should have all posted on Monday.
I was in class.
I think they all posted on Monday.
Alright.
They did. It was Monday. I was here Monday. The 30th is Monday.
I believe you. I ran to my school's library because it has better Wi-Fi and checked it out.
26? What about 26?
I think that's the number of weeks.
Oh, yes, that is the number of weeks. Was doing the math. I see. I thought you were talking about like the 26th. I was like, that's a Thursday either way, but yeah, it came out on 30th, the Monday. The January 30th, Monday. I'm even checking a calendar
are
right now. It's
30
Monday.
days.
You can see it in the corner of the screen.
So
The
wild that
launch
we've
party,
got-
maybe you're confused. The launch party happened on Thursday just because that's when Comic Corner
That's our
happens.
comic corner time.
Yeah, that's when you might be confused about that. It had been out since Monday of that week. Mars has class on Tuesdays until way too freaking late, and so it was like
Yeah.
not worth it to try and shove it in there after that. Yeah, I get it, Jamie. We understand now. I was just confused, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, we were confused, but we figured it out.
Indeed. We got there. Can I? Not
Such
easily.
lovely little flowers.
I'll.
Oh, not
okay.
at all.
No
Jake.
worry, Jamie.
We all get that
The
confusion
calendar
sometimes.
stuff happens. It's fine. I was confused. Yeah, I was worried. You know.
I too was confused.
I was like, wait, what? I did it right, I thought. Yes. No, the only thing special about the first one was that it's 3. There never be 3 in one again. That was specifically because it was the first one. Right?
Yeah.
Because at least on Webtoon, it's only when you open the 3rd one of a series that it asks
they
you,
ask
it prompts
you
you
to
to subscribe. So everything I heard about had said, do that. And that's why we did that.
Excuse me.
Excuse you indeed. But yeah, as you can also see, Jamie, Mars also didn't have a concept of time because she thought that we only had until July of content.
Yeah.
So it's not just you, Jamie, okay?
Yeah,
Even
it's
Mars
not.
has calendar issues. You know, Dylan's
and
also
I admitted I
calendarly
was wrong.
challenged.
I
And,
admitted I was
you know,
wrong.
And we learned. So, you know, it's all good.
It's just so wild to me that we have enough content to last a whole year. I did not think that was possible.
Over a year.
I
Mars
know!
30 isn't
I
even
know!
the end.
I know!
We're planning on, I think it's 37.
Yeah,
I think
before
it's 37.
before a hiatus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's 37.
So we'll have like a mid-season break
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, we
a lot of
need to
stuff.
take that mental refresher.
It's
and
not even
things
that.
like
It's,
that.
I need to just make sure that I got the ability to keep on the backlog.
And of course, we want to make sure the story is still progressing forward.
Yeah.
Like, we're actually wrapping up the writing for season 1 right now, and we'll probably start season 2 maybe even by April.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the way
Well,
things are
there's-
going, because
There's like 3 seasons, Jamie.
so
So 37 isn't the end. 37 is like
it's literally
a break.
halfway through season
it's a
1.
pause. It's a scheduled pause of like the first sort of grouping of life happened. And then we're going into a second grouping. Yeah, so the plan is about 3 seasons.
Sounds
So, yeah.
right.
It's a lot of content. It is a long period of thing. Should we have done this as our first comic? Everybody tells you not to, but you know, who fucking cares?
Yeah, we like challenges. You know, someone tells
Yes.
us don't do something, we're like, all right, do it.
I
Do it.
don't-
Okay.
I don't hope for this to be like a 10-year thing like some comics are, but it's definitely like, I can see it being like a 5-year thing, you know?
I can see a 5-year.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking like it's like a 5-year plan, right?
Also, Ori, it has to be a detective story next. You
Oh,
know
yeah.
what I saw yesterday, and
Oh,
I
what?
have to share it with you. I was watching the Nintendo Direct yesterday,
Oh, and
and there was a video game coming out called Deca Police.
Oh.
Takes place in a futuristic society. They use technology to solve crimes, and the main protagonist has such a smarmy smirk on his face. I freaking love it.
if it happens,
Oh,
it
like-
happens, Jamie. But,
I need it in my life.
oh, yeah, you gotta tell me about that game.
Oh.
That might have to be on our gameplay list, depending on how the gameplay is, you know?
You know, it does have the voice acting, although Ghost Trick is coming to the Switch, and I thought that could be fun.
Okay. I definitely don't think that with Ace Attorney, we're definitely not in it for like a long game, right now. We're in it for like a fun interim game. You know, I definitely want to go through those other games that the creator of Elevator Hitch made. I think
Oh,
those
yeah.
are fun, short little, like, this is a nice little median break, right?
Like a 3-hour-long game that we can
it's a
play.
1-session game, right? It's a 1-stream game. I also like
I was
doing the
actually
1
so
stream.
surprised how quickly we got through through
I didn't
elevator
realize
hitch.
that it was an hour and a half estimate for like most of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, the hour and a half I think was just referring to the true ending, because it does
Yeah.
take a bit to get there.
But no, I was happy. Honestly, it was exactly how long I wanted the game to be. Right? Like
Yeah.
exactly what I wanted.
I couldn't imagine it getting dragged out for longer.
Didn't imagine getting it, but just the idea that it was like it fit so nice and neat into one stream. Right? It was one stream. It was just a great little bloop, and here it is. We did it, and then we get back into Ace Attorney all refreshed. I get a little bit of that time to like
try out some new
yeah, there's a lot of
voices,
Ace Attorney games, Jamie.
clothes. Oh, there are
it
so
will last
many.
a while.
games.
There's no doubt about that. How many are there? There's these 3, there's the 2 Edgeworths, and then there's 3 more? So I think that's 8 games.
Yeah, roughly.
I think that's the math. I think it's 8 games. Yes, I plan to play them all. Will it be easy? No, because some of them are like not really supposed to be able to be played. Will I invest in a DS capture card? We'll see when I get there.
Yeah, depending on whether you need a welding iron or not.
It's one of those things where I would have to look way harder into it, to do it. But it's only 2 that I can't emulate. Well, it's only 1 that I'm having specific difficulties emulating. The other one I just haven't done the research on yet. So it's like, we got a while. However, I refuse to be thwarted, so I won't be thwarted. The only one I can see being a problem is the one that's the fan translation one, because I just have to.
Yeah.
I know they exist, but it's just like, how do I get there? I don't know how to get there.
The path is a long and arduous one.
Yeah, that's the only, I need someone on the in. I need someone getting me, on the vibe, right? So if anybody hears about how to get the Miles Edgeworth Investigations 2 fan translation,
Please
let me
explain.
know. Let me know, okay? I really haven't looked it up yet, but let me know. I'll probably
We are
get it.
desperate.
I need it. I won't live without it, and I think Dylan would die.
I would also die.
I need it. I need it.
I need the full story. I really do.
All right, we got this last one.
Oh! God said it looks so good.
Let me actually fix this. Nope. Underneath.
Underneath?
Mm-hmm. Hello, PCM.
Oh, no.
That is fine.
Hey, PCM.
I hope you enjoyed whatever you were doing, though. I hope it wasn't a bad thing you had to do, like a sad thing, like homework or something.
Oh, that's just too depressing. That's what I need to do tomorrow.
Yes.
I did shit today.
Oh no.
I
Actually,
gotta catch up.
I'm actually in a position now, knock on wood, where I have gotten so much better at editing. Like I just really leveled up my like my video editing skills.
Really?
For the Ace Attorney things, that I am like moving ahead. Like I am moving along. Right. Like I am moving. It is going, That reminds me, I do have to upload the video that I finished for tomorrow, because I just didn't do that. But it's been done for the majority of today. I just haven't uploaded it yet.
Hey, that's still a step.
It's definitely a nice step, because what was happening, and this was a flawed system. Before, I was like kind of a little ahead, right? I had I would finish the 2 episodes for the week by Monday, and then they could just be uploaded for Tuesday, Thursday. But then I went away on vacation, and so I had the episodes that I needed to be uploaded that while I was away, right? But then I needed to come back, and the day the first full day I was back, I needed to edit it an entire video for the next day. And then I was never like caught up. Like I could just not catch up. I was constantly like editing videos like right the day before. And then I sort of came to a head last week. And that's why I posted the video on Friday instead of Thursday. And I've moved now to Tuesday-Friday schedule instead of Tuesday-Thursday schedule. Because I literally just wasn't finished and I was going to die if I had to like make it happen, you know, beforehand. So it was like, okay, we're just moving it to Friday so that I have more time to do things. And now I actually got into like a groove of like editing that is like, oh, I actually have, yeah, I actually like have like way more edited ahead now. So it's very nice.
That is impressive.
There's nothing that, like I don't have any that are like fully done and just ready to go that aren't like, you know, right here, but I actually have like a good like 50% of 2 more episodes edited. So that's nice.
Ooh. It's one of those things, like the more you do it, the quicker and more efficient.
and you know, when you actually like try to do it efficiently and not just, you know, go at it, because you know that does help as well.
Yes, that is a rule I need to learn with doing flats, because the way I do it definitely takes some more time. So I definitely had to expedite the process, so to speak. He kind of does, doesn't he, Jamie? I think it's the start of a new season, if I remember correctly.
It is. Is it Clark in the thumbnail? I love Clark. I love Clark. He's, you know, I don't know how to explain. I want to say Clark has himbo vibes, but it's not himbo vibes. It's like book smart, and that's it, I guess. Is this the word? YouTube. Let me check. No email. Yeah, it's Clark. It is Clark. It is Clark. You need to know it's Clark. It matters that it's Clark. He won't say his name. You'll hear it in his voice right away. It is Clark. You've met Clark. Everybody knows Clark. Clark is not a spoiler.
No one doesn't not know Clark.
You need to know Clark. I love Clark. I love saying Clark. Can you tell?
Clearly.
I've already watched that episode like 4 times. They're not spoilers.
That's not a spoiler.
Haha.
You guys need an education on what a spoiler is.
Okay, Dylan has face blindness, and so sometimes he doesn't recognize characters. So sometimes in shows, I'll like say like, "Do you know who that is?" And he'll be like, "No," and then I'll tell him who it is because he's supposed to fucking know who it is because you're supposed to recognize the goddamn character. And how dare you, Jamie? How dare you not remember Clark? And you know, because he's from, and then he goes, "Spoilers!" And it's like, Dylan, the only reason I know is because I can tell that it's the same goddamn person. Okay. Right now we're talking about how
the conundrum.
Spoilers sometimes are not really spoilers. It was literally in like Vox Machina. Like a character showed up again, and I was like, Dylan, that's like, do you know who that is? And he's like, no. And I go, it's this person, this character. He's like, what? How dare you tell me who this is? Like I didn't know. And I was like, Dylan, but the show thinks that you do know, so you're supposed to know.
My dad said something so weird regarding Vox Machina today. So I'm watching. He comes downstairs because he works from home. And he sees I'm watching, so he comes to join me. And he says, oh, there's something they did this season that I really didn't like. And I'm like, oh, what's that? And it's like, and he goes, well, they give you a preview of what's happening. And I'm sitting there like, I haven't seen that before. And then that scenario would like repeat halfway through the show. So I think they're showing previews of what's going to happen. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that doesn't sound great, but all right, we'll do it. That's literally not a thing.
Yeah, what was
Like,
he talking about?
there- I think what he was talking about, there are dream sequences and visions happening that allude to what might happen later on, like premonitions and stuff. And my dad stuck around to watch all this with me because I turned to him and I was like, I don't know
Exactly,
what the
Jamie.
hell you were talking about. And he was like, yeah, I don't know what I was talking about either. I guess it was just visions
Oh my
and
God.
dreams.
That's hilarious. That's so funny.
I'm just staring at him like,
Oh my God.
are you okay?
What? Excuse me, what?
I'm so confused.
Oh my God.
But then there was also a part. So there's a scene where Vex and Keyleth get like spored, so they start hallucinating.
Oh, yeah. They
And
do
the
drugs
animation
involuntarily.
is like super drug aesthetic. And my dad's like, did I fall asleep on this part? I don't remember
What did
watching
your
this.
dad think about the satyr's art? Dylan and I like paused on that. to
Wait,
see what it was.
which art?
The satyr's art, what the satyr was drawing, and how he drew the party. Do you not remember?
I guess not.
It's in
Maybe
that
I
episode.
forgot.
It's in that episode. In that episode, the satyr that follows them around, right? I don't
Yeah.
remember his name. He's drawing in a sketchbook, and then they take the
Yes.
sketchbook, and then like Keyleth looks at the sketchbook, has a reaction. Vax looks at the sketchbook,
Yes.
has a reaction. They pass it back, and then we see what's in the sketchbook. Do you remember what's in the
Not
sketchbook?
remember that.
You
No.
blocked it out.
Crap.
We paused on it. We were dying. Okay. I'm gonna tell you this is not PG-13 right now,
must have-
alright?
I must have looked down at my popcorn.
It's like 2 seconds.
Does Percy react to it with the question?
With the yeah.
Okay, because I remember Percy reacting, but I don't remember the picture. I think I looked
no,
down
they
at
have
my
they drew 3 pictures. They drew one with Vex, who has enormous boobs, and then they drew one with Keyleth and Vax, and it's Vax like tied up in the vines, and then the last one is the one with Percy, and I don't remember if he said it, but he has 3 dicks, and then each of the heads
Percy
is the
Percy
head.
said, "Why do I have 3 penises?"
Yeah, but each of the heads of the penis is a head of the other 3 characters that are in the group at that time. It's wild.
Oh,
It's wild. That's why I asked you.
I missed it.
That's why I asked you if you were watching it with your dad, because I was gonna say, you're like, he's already seen it. I'm like, okay, then it's whatever. But I was gonna say like, maybe just be ready.
Nah, my dad and I have been watching Doom Patrol, Invincible. Like we're no stranger to the dirty jokes.
It's less. Yeah. So Jamie. So the he draws Percy. He's like crouched, and he's got 3 dicks, and they all have, instead of like a regular head, it's literally the like Vex's and Keyleth's heads.
Keyleth.
Like at the end. It's wild, and there's a lot of like just random just like dicks with wings just flying around like in the general area of the whole thing. It's honestly, in my opinion, hilarious. 2 of them are literally satire, and then one of them is like, okay, this person just really ships these 2 characters. That's sort of how it worked out. It's very
Okay,
fun. It's literally
so
a second. If you don't pause,
There's the rewatch value.
it was one of those things where like if you actually want to see what they look like you probably do have to pause. Like they do go by relatively fast, but it was just like you definitely see enough where it's like, okay, now I just gotta know, you know, morbid curiosity.
It's just I'm so curious.
Exactly. I gotta know.
Yeah.
Can you
I heard
show
Percy's
me?
reaction to it where he asked the sayer like,
Yeah.
why do I have 3 dicks?
Yeah.
But I
yeah.
did not see the picture.
I
That
see.
went over my head, or I looked down, or I looked away, or
It's honestly
something
hilarious,
happened. Now
and
I
I
need to
just
rewatch.
I love Percy, so his reaction just makes it better. He's just
Oh,
it's like
Jamie,
kind of
watch
just
the
like
first season. It is brilliant.
it's just
and then
so
watch
good.
the second
Whether or
season.
not you like, I know you said you've listened to the podcast, but honestly, I don't think there's any like downside. You know, like I don't feel like I've lost anything to
No.
having known like the relative storyline, because they did have to change it a significant amount in certain places. They do rearrange it so certain things happen like in a weird order. Like they split the party when, like, to my recollection, that didn't happen.
Like that did not happen.
Yeah, so it's like very, very. You just keep forgetting to watch it, Jamie. How could you? Mars has another show to watch. On the list.
I do.
Hello,
Yes.
Grenade. Welcome.
I literally have that show open in another browser, ready to go.
He berated me about it today because I told him you were watching season 2 of Vox Machina. He loves it so much. And I told him you were watching season 2, and it's like, has she seen Dragon Age Absolution? And I'm like, no, she doesn't have Netflix. And he's like, you should watch it with her. And I'm like, we watch other stuff, okay? He's like, it's only an hour. I'm like, Dylan, it's definitely not an hour. And he's like, fine.
God, it's
an
6
hour and a half.
episodes.
Yeah, but they're only 24 minutes, so technically, mathematically, he's right. It's only 2.5 hours. But, like, I'm like, Dylan, please. Dylan, she doesn't have Netflix. He's like, I'm like, fine, okay, I'll see if it's on, our streaming site. I'm like, yep, it is. All right, I'll give it to her. Do you promise you will freaking shut up? Thank you.
Well, tell him
Thank you, Grenade.
I'm going to watch 2 episodes tonight, 2 episodes tomorrow morning, and 2 episodes in the evening.
Love Razarin and, Matt Mercer's voice acting. Matt Mercer's
I'm
not
sure I will.
Razarin. Shiro is Razarin. I think I told you this.
Yes,
So
I
good.
need.
Honestly, my boy.
I am hype.
What's hilarious is that Razarin definitely doesn't fit the normal of my, like, favorite character groups in shows. He's definitely an outlier.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
How so?
I mean, you don't
It's
care about
Prime
spoilers.
Baby.
If anybody else cares about spoilers, he ends up being, turn away now. He ends up being, like, the main villain, I guess, in this grouping of it. And he definitely he does, like, a reverse Hotsun, I guess, you could say, in a weird way. Like, honestly, it's very vague. But, yeah, he ends up being the villain.
That
And he
is
ends up kind of
incredibly
having very sucky views about certain things. But I still love him because, honestly, it's all his mother's fault. Okay? And well, it's definitely like a deep down, I know he could have been better, but then, like, dark magic and shit happened, and his mother was just a bitch. And so it's like, I love you, my boy. But normally I'm not a villains person, you know? That's what normally I'm not a villains person.
Oh, I see.
No, see, my favorite thing is reverse Sasuke. I love my reverse Sasuke.
Where they act like an asshole in the beginning, but then become a friend.
Yes. And best reverse Sasuke is Fakir from Princess Tutu. You cannot tell me otherwise. There's no better one. I don't care. Even Zuko, because I didn't hate Zuko nearly as much as I hated Fakir at the beginning. I hated Fakir.
Oh no, Fakir starts out
so
in ass.
much. I hated Fakir so much. But then at the end, favorite character, best boy. Love him. He's great. Love him. Beautiful boy.
Best traumatized boy.
Yeah. It's that age 9 trauma. That age 9 trauma.
It really is. It really is.
Alrighty, and then let me check. I believe this is done.
Nice.
Oh no, I have one more. Okay.
Ah,
Very quick, very quick. Shouldn't be that long. I have one more. Speaking of hateable characters, what about hateable characters? PCM, come on. Okay, this keeps throwing me, and I don't know why. Because it is the wrong color. Okay, Jesus. I don't know what happened. I kept looking at this, and I'm like, his gloves are not the right color.
I drew it wrong? I gave him the wrong glove color, didn't I?
Yeah, I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, it's the wrong color. And no, you know the weirder part about it? Is that I could have sworn that I literally went and I like picked the right color and colored over it, and it didn't change. And I was like, why? Okay, I guess I'm just seeing things. No, I must have screwed up somehow. That's not the right color there either. I must have screwed up somehow. And, you know, just like my brain is being weird. No, it's the wrong color. It's just
No,
Jesus.
that was definitely the wrong color. That was like the hair
Oh,
color.
that is the hair color. And it's over here on his lapel too, for some reason. This one kind of went a little haywire.
What the hell did I do to this?
I don't know. This one went a little off the rails. That one in particular.
What did I do?
It's fixed. You're good.
Ah,
It's years ago, Mars. Years ago.
I
You
hate
get some
seeing my past
mistakes.
mistakes.
You get some.
Oh. Jamie has a comic question.
Yes, please. I'm here at very least until I finish this and check it again. But I love comic questions. Honestly, make my day.
How did Hoatson's journal survive when he's so clearly drenched in seawater?
So, technically, and this is something that you could see in the scrapped first entry, is that technically he didn't shipwreck. Technically he stranded himself by not being great at boats. And so essentially what happened is that he came to the island perfectly fine, got off the island with all his stuff, and then he lost his boat. His boat floated away, his rowboat floated away, and that caused him to be stranded on the island. And actually what happened is that he does dive into the ocean to get the
To try to get it
try
back.
and get the boat back, which he
not
clearly
swim
didn't do.
fast enough.
Yeah, Milano was right. There's no doubt about that. I mean, look at his coat. You know, Milano says it all. So the journal is technically in his bag on the beach that he left, because he would have gotten the boat and come back, was his mind thought. The boat was way too far away for him to do it. So the journal is only a little bit wet because then he was gripping it for dear life as he was essentially having a panic attack on the beach, soaking wet. And that's why the journal is slightly wet, but it's not ruined and soaked through.
Yeah.
There
Hotson
you
would
go.
never take his precious journal into
No,
the
he
ocean.
wouldn't.
That was a loving gift from his father.
From his papa. Sweet papa.
Sweet papa.
But yeah, there you go, Jamie. Yeah, it's
And-
something that just
and
isn't
third.
shown. Oh, I'm so glad. That was a good Mars choice there. And it made it have one of my favorite panels that I got to redraw, because that panel, essentially the equivalent of that panel, is in the original, but it's much more like a lead up to it than being a hard cut like that. And it also allowed me to redraw that panel, and out of it's one of my two top favorite panels that I've drawn for the entire comic so far.
See, with that hard cut, Jamie, I love moments where it's like characters are in one setting and they keep the same facial expression in that setting, and then you do a quick cut to a new setting where they still have that same facial expression, but it's like things are different. Best example I could think of is that in that, and Ori, you know this one, the anime Millionaire Detective.
Mm.
There is a moment where the character Haru is sitting in his office, and his boss is saying, okay, you need to go on a trip to Hong Kong with your partner who you despise. And he answers in like okay, I didn't hear you, but I agree because you're the boss kind of way. And then he realizes what he just agreed to, and he's like, huh? And it cuts to him sitting in the private jet on the seat while he's being
he
strapped
goes,
in by the stewardess.
huh?
And he's like, enjoy your trip, huh? Like, he has no idea how he got there. And it's just, I love that. That is a cliche I love.
It's a good one.
It's so good for comedic effect, but it's also a good way to get your story going quickly without having to worry too much about the transition.
Yeah, I think it worked out very, very well.
That was definitely what I was going for. It is a glorious
It
hard
is a great.
cut.
If you're looking for an anime, watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, Billionaire Detective.
It's a
Very,
beautiful
very
anime.
good.
I actually probably have to change around the characters on my 2020 Wii because of that. I gotta draw Daisuke. I can't not. I mean, come on.
I
Come on.
cannot wait to see Daisuke in your style.
I gotta draw Daisuke. I feel like there was one other character that I'm like, I have to draw instead. Because a
Is
few
it
of them.
Bisco?
Is it what?
Is it
Bisco's on
Bisco?
there. Bisco's on there.
Oh, okay. Oh, I
Bisco's
thought you
on
meant
there.
like move them up or something.
Oh, no. The order is kind of subjective, if I'm being honest. It's more just like they exist.
So Jamie, that stuff Hotsun was eating on the island, if you noticed, he was trying to find something edible in the beginning, and then he runs into the Lee Marana, who's also eating the berries. So he learns from the Lee Marana what is safe to eat.
I'll also
Very similar to
point
how
out-
we as humans figured it out.
I'll also point out something, if I can get it out real quick, because I want to show this, because I made, hello, let me read my damn comic, dashboard.
I was about to say, you made a pride flag?
No. So if you notice, when you watch this one, so he takes this like yellowish purple one, right? It's kind of in between. He spits it out. It's gross. When we get to this, here he's picking and he's throwing all these purple ones. He's just throwing them off. He's throwing some some yellowy ones here and all that sort of stuff until the Limerana eats its mlems at a fully purple one. And by time it has fully purple juice. And so by the time we get to the end, Hotsun's eating the fully purple ones. So why they were disgusting is because they were unripe. That's a little like lore thing in there.
That was a little science thing that Ori, the
Mhm.
botanist, had to include, which
Is it-
I was all on board for, because
Is it
that's
an
a bit of
amazing-
realism that I think is very fun to include.
Yeah, is it an amazing way to find out if something is edible or not? No. However, you either eat or you die.
So very true.
You eat or you die. You drink or you die. So, yeah. That's sort of how it is. Now, you're 100% right, Jamie. But, unfortunately for Hotsun, this island has, no really known flora or fauna on it. Fortunate for him in a research way, but unfortunate for him in a survival way. So he did sort of have to just make an attempt, and make an attempt that the things that at least would taste relatively good and not dry out your mouth. That is also very true, Jamie, but as you recall, he thought that he was completely alone and stranded. Because, sort of in his mind, if someone lived on the island, they would have known about it, right? Like, he would have known about these creatures, he would have known about these plants, he would have known about all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Did
The fact
Hotsun
that
get
none of
lucky?
this has been
Yes.
documented told him that no one lived here.
Yeah.
But that's just not the case. It's more so the people who live here don't really care to document the animals. That is not their priority.
At least not in the way that Hotsun would want.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Like
did
they're
Hotsun
naming
get lucky?
stuff and they're well, there's a slight reason to assume he did buy a boat, so he is on a registry of some kind. And when that boat doesn't return, Ollis might raise an eyebrow.
That's
If
something.
only to
But on top of
track
that,
him down to find out where the hell his ship went.
I don't think we wrote Hotsun as I needed to be rescued. If you remember how he wrote his two things for Survivor were shelter and food. It wasn't a signal. It wasn't a raft. It wasn't anything to leave. He was not attempting to be rescued. In the end, he specifically was like, I could get used to living here, right? He was sort of on the way to acceptance that this would be the rest of his life. And that's why it was important to get food, because if he could learn what to eat, he would survive. He would be able to live on the island. Versus if he...
Just basically planning on being Charles Muntz from
Yeah.
Up.
No, literally. Versus if he didn't get any food at all, or if he was already, and you can point this out with he is trying foods that he doesn't know, he is trying plants that he doesn't know, is the idea that
Well,
yes,
Hodgson is not a survivalist.
this is also very true. They are out of order.
Or going out. If you remember, the shelter completely crumbled, and he said, it looks so much easier in the book.
Hodgson
He
has
is
no
not a
actual
he just
experience.
learned what
Hodgson
he
is the
needed
guy
to.
that has watched Bear Grylls and then gotten stranded in a place that Bear Grylls has never been to. This is also very true, Jamie.
That is true for real life. I think by that point, being completely soaked, Hodgson had enough of water at that point.
Yeah, definitely.
It was not on his mind.
But yeah, the whole idea is that no, Hodgson didn't particularly expect to be rescued, and he was kind of on the yeah, I guess I can get used to this, you know, this isn't the worst way to live the rest of my life.
Lots to research,
but lucky
no
him,
one to bother.
he didn't poison himself, and he was getting rescued.
Congrats, Jamie, you do better than Hodgson.
It just makes it all the more sort of incompetence that Hodgson has. As
Exactly.
Hodgson is the guy that went to a library and read all the books about, say, with what's his name, Carl, right, from Up. That was Carl was his name.
Yes.
Read all the books, saw all the movies.
Or Charles Muntz.
No, I'm not talking about Muntz. I'm talking about the main character. Muntz is the evil guy. But he wasn't even a Boy Scout, right? He was literally a research student, essentially, right? He read all of the books about everything. He read about sailing. He had no actual physical experience with any of it. He wasn't taught any of it by a person. He read it. So now he's thrown into a situation that he has never been in. He technically was very not prepared for. And now he gets to try and recall the knowledge that he read in a book and never actually practiced.
It'll only
not
go
gonna
so
be
well.
good at it.
No. Not at all.
He was very rash in his decision to do exactly what he did, and we'll see why later. Eventually, you'll get to know more about him. But yes, Jamie, he did. There's a reason that he is constantly made fun of by the likes of Hodgson and and Ferrex, and even later as we're on the boat in what Mars and I are writing right now. He's definitely even worse. Yeah, there's a reason he went with so little foresight. But that would be spoilers. And this is the one thing I refuse to spoil. And so that's, that's where we're at. Okay, we got
No, me as well. You don't do that with our story. Other stories are fine.
All this. Everything has shading. La la la.
Beautiful.
Shading, shading, shading. Hello, Milano, my boy. Thank you. Shading, 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 shading. This is the other one I redrew, Mars, from your discussion.
That's the interpretation you get, Jamie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look at, there's the redraw, Mars.
Oh, wow. All right, yeah, that's a hard 5.
And then you go through, and the end. Beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Maybe, Jamie, maybe. Alrighty. Yay, I did it! How many did I do?
Ooh.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10. Alright. Gotta mark it down, guys. I keep hardcore track. But I think with that, we will
Wrap
We will
for the
wrap up.
night.
we'll wrap up. Jamie, I love all these theories. Honestly, gives me lifeblood. I bet it either it gives Mars either ideas, insults, or praise. You'll have to find out. Depends on what we wrote or not.
It's a secret. I can't just go away giving all my secrets, can
Exactly. We do give away a lot of secrets, but we can't do it all. We can't do it all. Gives you story ravey. I don't exactly know what that means.
I don't know how to interpret that.
I'm going to interpret that.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, okay, that's
okay.
how I was going to interpret that. That's exactly how I was going to interpret that.
That's fine.
I was like, I'm going to interpret this as a good thing. As like a rabid for more. But yeah, I'm glad we're on the same page. Alrighty. Yeah, thanks for hanging out, guys. We have new Ace Attorney YouTube video coming out tomorrow. Honestly, guys, if you're watching the Ace Attorney streams but you're not watching the videos, they're hella, okay? I've
put
listened
so
to them
much
like
work
8 times and I still rewatch them because come on, they're hella. And especially the Von Karma ones, we go way too ham. I think we cursed the most in a single 15-minute episode.
Oh, there's
of
50 objections that come up.
Yeah, in the episode that's coming out tomorrow, 15 minutes long, we had by far the most expletives of the entire series we've played so far. So I know, very fun about that. You get new assets for Mars and me and Dylan by watching it. So I'm really trying to sell it. Can you tell? I really am very proud of them. And we get to play Ace Attorney again live on Sunday. So we do hope to see everybody there. Starting a new game, new characters,
start.
some new avatars for us,
Familiar
some costumes,
faces.
and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, they're hilarious. Dylan did such a good job as Von Karma.
Oh,
yeah.
he
All right,
nailed
guys.
it.
We will hopefully see you all Sunday. Have a nice weekend until then. Happy, TGIF. Happy Friday. And
TGIF indeed. Enjoy your weekend.